Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. And hopefully, this is the last recorded message that you'll have to hear. Hopefully, you'll see my bright, smiling face next time. Anyway, um, the title of this message is called A Measure of Light. This afternoon, I intend to step on some toes. Now, it's not that that is what I started out to do. However, with those whom I have shared little bits of the teaching, conviction has followed. Also, this is a two-part message in one lesson. First, I want to start out by painting a picture for you. It's actually two pictures. The first is a picture of a life of someone who considers himself a good person, or whom a person of the world would consider a good person. This person has been to church all his life. His grandfather was a pastor. His father was a pastor, so he will follow in their footsteps. So let's paint on his canvas the way he sees himself. Now, what color would that be? White, of course. Grab a big brush and slap it on. Now let's rinse it out and put down the brush for now. Now let's look at someone else's life. Let's take a woman of 35. She started out with a wild childhood, dropped out of high school and never finished. Took one dead-end job after another. She took up with one guy after another, all of who cared more about themselves and the here and now than anything else. She got pregnant and had an abortion. Afterward, she was riddled with guilt and thought about suicide, and instead decided to commit suicide in her feelings, emotions, and turned to drugs. This led to theft and selling herself for one fix after another. So let's do a little bit of painting on her canvas. Now, what color would that be? Why, black, of course. So, she picks up a 1-gallon can of flat black paint and douses the canvas completely. Let's let it dry for now. Back to canvas number 1. Now, there are ways that seem right to a man, but the ends of which are death, and that's from Proverbs 12:12. So one day he decides to cut a corner, even though he knows that others will be hurt. But he justifies it in that, well, I'm a good person for the most part. I'm entitled to take a shortcut now and then. So let's take a short, pointy brush and dip into the gloss black and place a dot on the canvas. Now, it's hard to see it because, after all, there's still so much good. And so it starts. Self-justification. Because darkness loves to scatter, blinders are put on and adjusted so that no two dark areas can be seen at the same time. Eventually, there are no areas left of unbroken light. Meanwhile, on the second canvas, he restores my soul. He guides me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And that's Psalm 23:3. In the same way, I tell you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. And that's from Luke 15:10. The woman is on her knees with a broken and contrite heart, confessing that there is no good in her and pleading for the living God to change her from within. Now the hand of Messiah picks up the brush and dips it into the only pure ultra white found only in his heart. And he places a dot at the very center of the canvas. And so it starts. More and more white dots appear, connecting to each other because light attracts light. And the white is now how she sees herself. Let me rephrase that. The white is not how she sees herself, but rather how Yeshua is reflected on the canvas that is her. Messiah did not come for the righteous. He came for the weak, the broken, the lost, the cast-offs. And he came for you, and he came for me. He came to afford you joy when it appears that there is nothing going on around that would bring you any sort of happiness. He came to deliver peace within you when the only thing visible from without is chaos. If you don't know the Prince of Peace, you will never know true peace. The peace that the world offers is a cheap poster from the dollar store that is dangled before you as you step off the cliff. Part 2. For this part of the lesson, we have visual aids. Lori can show you the visual aids. I have 3 types of light bulbs. One is an LED, one is a fluorescent, and one is an incandescent. Now I have a question for you. Which one will put out the brightest lights? All things being equal, like comparable wattage and efficiency. The answer is none of them. They're not connected. Okay? They're not attached to a socket. And that's like some people, they're just happy just to be counted among the light bulbs. And they call themselves believers. They don't actually want to have to shine or to have to put their lives or to have their lives diminished in any way by having to serve. But be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. And that's James 1:22. They have allowed themselves to be placed where they are most needed, but inhibit that which would cause them to do something. They don't want to be used in any way because they may not be in control. And I'm not going to read it for you, but when you get a chance, please read Ephesians 4 verses 11 through 17. Okay, and another group, they are the plugged in, but are in inner turmoil, afraid of having to shine in a way that requires them to shine in accordance to the power and the intensity that the source determines. I'm sure you've all seen light bulbs that have rheostats, and that's something like a little switch that you can bring up and up and up and up, and the higher you lift it up, the brighter the lights, or in the case of a ceiling fan, the faster the speed. Anyway, they want to shine at a level that's, way down here because it's more comfortable, and because of the fact that because it's not so bright, some of their iniquities won't show through. For God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power and love and self-discipline. And that's 2 Timothy 1 through 7, or 1:7. Now, during World War II, in Europe, specifically the UK, there were curfews in which ordinary citizens were prohibited from venturing outside at night. It was just dangerous. There was all sorts of runs being made by the Luftwaffe, dropping bombs all over Europe. And like I said, this was done for safety. They had to have blackout curtains on all their windows, and the lighting inside their home was very sparse. And I'm sure you remember one of the 10 plagues in Egypt was darkness that could be felt. And I'm sure this was something akin to it. And I'm sure there's been darkness in your lives, because there's been darkness in my life where it felt the same way. But thank God for the Master who shines his light and shines it from within with great intensity. Anyway, the military and intelligence branches who had to venture out and drive had to have their lights blacked out with tiny little slits aimed toward the road so that they could keep to it. This was done for their safety. The slits actually illuminated quite a lot because of the utter darkness. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. The darkness can never extinguish it. Satan does not like you to be connected. He does not like you to shine your little light, okay? It may just be one candle, but I tell you what, one candle in darkness is like a runway light to an airplane. Anyway, and that is found in John 1:5. So today, can you feel the utter darkness? Getting connected and staying connected is a scary process, because the thing that has to be overcome is the fear inside. The fear of the unknown, having to speak to people that you don't know, having to leave the comfort of your nest, and sometimes the hurts that keep you shackled. There's a song by Petra. It says, "Another sleepy Sunday, safe within the walls, outside a dying world, and desperation calls. But no one hears the cries or knows what they're about. The doors are locked within, or is it from without? Making the light as it comes from within so dim." You know, it's real easy to start, and then it's really hard to stop. Turning a blind eye, or pretending that you don't hear that cry for help. You know, sometimes we forget that it was our tears, and it was our cry, and somebody heard us, and somebody came to the rescue. Maybe somebody didn't come physically to you. Maybe somebody reached out to our Heavenly Father on their knees for you. You know, I had a grandpa that was full of faith, and I know darn well that he was on his knees for me. And I can feel that. I know that for sure. Going out and reaching out place you in a position to be discounted and hurt, and sometimes even persecuted. The pain you may experience in this life is actually just a speck of dust compared to the reward of being in the presence of the one who suffered the most for all, and yet he showed love even to his persecutors. Sometimes you may be called upon to shine enough light so a shadow may be cast. But always remember, like the Petra song says, where there's a shadow, there is a light. The times are perilous, and you hold the key to someone else's well-being. And who knows that the key to your well-being isn't in the life of the one that you helped save. Again, I want to encourage you. There's all sorts of hurting people. All you have to do is look around. You can see it. They may not say a single word, but they're there. And it doesn't take much. Sometimes all it takes is to put a hand on them. Sometimes all it takes is to sit next to them and make them feel human. Above all else, I've talked to many a person who is homeless, and there is nothing that elevates their world more than to be looked at as a fellow human being. You have that power. It costs you absolutely nothing except your pride. Take the challenge, reach out, touch, and be Yeshua to somebody else. Shalom Aleichem.